Our next speaker is someone you've already met. Tamás is going to talk now about our SharePoint technologies.
So actually in the schedule you will see two presentations about SharePoint, and the reason we split that is just to have two titles there, because originally we started the development in a separate manner, so being it the JChem for SharePoint and search for SharePoint. But the end probably it's going to be one whole product bundle together. If there is a need to separate them or purchase them separately, then of course it will be possible. So the reason I mentioned it that probably I will join these two presentations together. I will have two separate sets of slides, but I will try to move over to the next one. So just a quick introduction that in the first part, I'm going to talk about what is JChem for SharePoint, what it contains, what features it has. Then I'm going to talk about also some quite big architecture changes we introduced in 1.0. It might be a bit of technical, so actually it might be quite important if your IT department will ask you that how JChem for SharePoint will fit into your corporate SharePoint infrastructure. Then maybe you can direct them to us, and hopefully we'll be able to give a satisfactory answer. And finally, I'm going to show you a roadmap. So what are our long-term plans for SharePoint? Because initially we were starting out from our ideas, so what we thought it will be important in the SharePoint environment. And recently we got a lot of feedback, and we were also requested just it would be nice to have a vision. So what are we planning in this area? Okay, so what is JChem for SharePoint then? So it's a product name for covering all ChemAxon components related to or integrated into Microsoft SharePoint, and now it will probably include the so-called JChem for SharePoint Search. In the past, it was JChem Search for SharePoint, but initially decided that we will keep the JChem brand name, and since it is for SharePoint Search, which is a part of SharePoint, we will call it like this. Actually, it is composed of smaller building blocks, since this is how SharePoint allows third-party integrations into itself. So basically, this could be web parts, custom list fields, and any other custom implementations. For example, we have custom service applications, which I'm going to show it to you. And what we are going to provide with that is basically a complete infrastructure to include chemistry in SharePoint. So what it means that, of course, initially we want to integrate the ChemAxon tools, but in some cases we were requested to have third-party components there, either for structure editing or for calculations. So we will try to be quite open to also integrate these third-party components and to be open to other applications as well. So these are basically our past features, what we already had at the UGM last year. It is the ChemAxon structure field. This is a basic field how we integrate structures into SharePoint. We also had the calculated field, which is able to calculate chemical terms expressions as IJC does. We have the integration with the collaboration features such as blog, discussion board, and wiki. And we also had the structure filter web part. This is quite a basic, it allows quite basic filtering for structures in SharePoint list. Actually, I'm going to quickly show you. So recently, actually, it was also worth mentioning that we will focus our development efforts mostly in SharePoint 2010. The reason for this that these two applications, 2007 and 2010, are different in many aspects. So it will be quite a big effort to keep continuing with both. And we think that in the longer term or even in the shorter term, most of those using SharePoint will migrate to SharePoint 2010. So what we can see here is basically a small list of structures. In the first field, basically, is this initial part of integration is the structure field, so it is possible to render them and edit structures using this field. In the third and two fields are so-called chemical terms fields. So in the second one, we calculate the log P. In the third one, we calculate the text-based expression UPAC name. And finally, the fourth column is a special one, which you might seen in our other applications as well. It is calculating the structural framework of the structure presented in the first field. So it's also a special type of columns. It's not coming back with a numerical value, but rather a structure itself. Now I'm actually using a demo server, which is located in Romania, Europe. It is a new one, so we have actually started moving to an old one, and it will be available pretty soon for demonstrations, and hopefully it will be much faster than the previous one. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you that how you can edit the structures and how it will affect the calculated results. So as you can see, it changed the structure, and it also updated the corresponding calculated fields in both columns. So apart from this, I mentioned that we have the wiki integration. So basically, the blog wiki and discussion board, they use the same feature for editing text and structure together. So here, basically, you can do the same editing. You can even resize the structures, and it will maintain the original aspect. So we redraw it on the fly. And of course, you can change back the results. And we also had in the past the structure filter. I'm just going to do a quick filtering. What we improved here, that now we have heat coloring as well. But then actually we plan to have significant improvements in the user interface of this filter. I'm going to talk about this later, but in the meantime I apply it, and as you can see, the list is filtered. It was actually pretty fast, and it shows now only the structures which match the query criteria. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. So what's new this year? As I mentioned, we have the SharePoint 2010 integration. I'm also talked about that we are going to probably not support anymore 2007. SharePoint 2010 has a full Firefox and Google Chrome support on Windows. So basically, if you have Firefox on Linux, it might have several limitations since Linux does not support Silverlight. But basically, I think you can also have most of the functionalities without Silverlight, but it's not that nice experience there. So we also have some improvements in the structured field. So we support inline editing with this, so you do not have to click that dialog. We also have integration with integrated third-party editors, namely ChemDraw. We also created a linked structure field, which I'm going to give you a short demo. Basically, what it does, it's similar to the structure field, but whereas with structure field, we also store the structures inside that custom field. So, for example, if you have an existing list in SharePoint with my strings, then you would need some kind of migration effort to use that. But with the link structure field, you can simply link into an existing field and start editing them right away. We also implemented the extension to the calculated field. Now it is able to use external web services, so not only our chemical terms expressions, but you can link up to your custom or other third-party web services what you have. We also have the calculated structure of field. It was the Bemis-Smulko structural framework what I showed you. We also have import and export web parts, visualizations, and basically the service application-based architecture I'm going to talk about a bit more detail. But now, first let's look at a bit of demonstration. So first, it's not really visual, this change, but basically what you can see here is two types of calculated fields. The first one is the original, which uses chemical terms expression, and the other one is using external web services for the same purpose. And just for the demonstration, we used a quite a bit older version. So, for example, it gives different values from the same logd. These web services are configurable on a central administration panel. So, as I mentioned, you can wire up your own web services here. Okay, the other area we have is you can import basically most of the well-known file types in a very simple way into SharePoint. So I'm going to just import an SD file. What's new actually in the coming 1.1 version, that we implemented the custom parser for SD file, and it's much faster than the current one, since we don't parse the molecule, the mol file itself. We just rather parse the SD file into different pieces and put it into SharePoint. So just to give you a quick feeling about its speed. So basically, the most time-consuming is uploading the data into SharePoint. This is also a new user interface, what we have. So now it is possible to configure in which column you want to map the SD files. You can change the name if you want. We also offer initial SharePoint field type, but if you want to change it around, you can also do it now. But now we are going to leave it as it is. And as you can see, it was pretty fast in importing almost 500 structures. Okay. With visualizations, we actually don't really offer, it is a bundled product or solutions. And what we did basically, and what we will do in the future, that we will look up basically several chart or visualization, third-party visualization implementations and give you samples. So probably how to display data using this. This one is using the so-called Visifier component. It's a Silverlight charting library. At the moment, we only have this kind of charts, but in the future, we will integrate also radar charts, scatter plot, and so on, and give you examples how to display data based on our custom calculations. Actually, this one is linked to the list I showed you. It had several other calculations which were not visible in its initial view, but basically this chart displays data from there. And finally, one other interesting area of integration. I just switched to another server now, because it's not put on the demo server yet. What you can see here is initially the SharePoint lists are also stored in SQL Server, but SharePoint offers a very flexible approach, and therefore for a larger number of structures, let's say 100,000 or even more, it's not really worth putting all the structures into SharePoint list. So what you can see here is a concept called external list, which maps the SharePoint fields one-to-one into a database table. So what you can see is basically a SQL Server table, and it has a field title, and we store the structures there. So there's a one-to-one relationship between the fields. So basically what the external list is able to do, that if you have all structures and information in a database, it's not really needed to import everything into SharePoint. So we can also set up some so-called these external data connections, some rules, and display your data inside SharePoint. And apart from displaying, of course, you can also edit it. So basically, when I change the structure here, it will save back to SQL Server. Here it goes. In the forthcoming versions, we will do similar examples for Oracle database as well, and linking up into, for example, JChem-based tables, JChem cartridge tables, and we also have additional features in mind, such as importing into this external list and getting data, and of course, doing searches in this external list using an underlying JChem index. So, finally, a few words about how does chemistry really fit into a corporate SharePoint. So, if you mention it to the IT department, they might probably worry about a few issues it might raise. So, first of all, that scalability, that how many users and how many structures can it support. So, what will be the load on the SharePoint infrastructure? So probably some process and memory intensive chemical calculations might break the SharePoint servers. How you can do load balancing and fault tolerance. So if something goes wrong, maybe another server can take over. What would be the response time? And they are generally worried about putting foreign solutions, DLLs, into SharePoint servers. So basically, we try to give an answer to these problems by integrating quite deeply into SharePoint. It was this kind of architecture was introduced in SharePoint 2010. Basically, most of their background processing are so-called service applications, and basically we implemented also the chemical calculations and all this background processing in a similar manner. So what it does, it's pretty scalable. So basically, if you have this central administration in SharePoint, you can basically set up these chemical calculations into multiple backend SharePoint servers. So if one of them is not enough, then you can set up a new one, and SharePoint will automatically balance the load between these two. So with this manner, you can also upload the chemistry to dedicated servers, so you do not have to calculate everything in the front-end servers affecting other SharePoint functionality. So you can find basically dedicated backend servers to do the heavy work for chemical calculations. It integrates well with complex or larger SharePoint farms. As I mentioned, it supports load balancing. We also store, because when we are doing these calculations and other work, we have to store the state of these processes. Now we have a custom database integrated with service applications. So that is why we can do basically load balancing. And finally, we will also introduce even more enhanced mode for calculating calculations. It will be asynchronous and basically a batch-based processing. So, for example, you want to calculate very computing-intensive calculation for 10,000 items, then it can be done in the background. So you set your request, it calculates in the background, and it will return to you when the results are ready. Doug, do I have 5 minutes left? Yes. Oh my God! So. These are basically the roadmap we planned for the future. Actually, we will try to post it somewhere on our website, or if you are interested, then you can come to me and I will give some more details. But now I'm going to quickly switch to the SharePoint part. And to make sure I not run out of time, I'll start directly with the demonstration. So basically here we have an initial user interface for this search. And as you can see, we also integrated the ChemDraw there. I'm not sure why this cancel has the L in the bottom. It's a layout issue. Hopefully this is the most problematic issue we will have. And I'm just going to run a simple search now for structures just to illustrate the areas we are, or the different types of files we are able to index. So on the left, basically, you can see a refiner where we list most of the possible sources we can index and query structures from. These are JChem for Excel workbooks, JChem for SharePoint list, what I demonstrated to you, wikis, blogs, whatever. We also support indexing chemical files, so MRV, MOL, CDX, sketch files found scattered around the file system. We also support the indexing of 3 types of OLE objects, so apart from Marvin, ChemDraw, and also ISIS. ISIS means, of course, the MDL, CMix, and XRIS draw. And also we are able to extract various text types or various ways how a structure could be represented in the text. So it could be SMILE string, UPAC name, and even corporate ID. I don't have the demonstration for corporate ID yet, but we will upload it in a demo server pretty soon. As you can see, we have quite a nice initial UI. So we have refiners for several types of information. We will plan to add the defaults, which included by SharePoint, so for file extension and so on. And we also have a special refiner. This is basically when I run a substructure search. So this is for the structures actually found by the substructure search. So you can further refine your search for the specific structures themselves. So if you are interested, as I mentioned, we already have a demo server, but we had some hardware issues with that. But finally, we purchased an additional one. So in this new server, basically all the SharePoint functionality and the search functionality will be put together, and hopefully it will also satisfy your needs. There are multiple approaches how you can try it out. So you can also generate a My site for yourself and play around for that, or you can request a complete site for your company, so you can try these features in a collaborative manner with your colleagues. Okay. Any questions?
Let's thank Tamás for his presentation.